We'll start with Dusty because that's one of the shorter stories and it'll lead into Jarrett and Hardy. So we had the continuation of Liam's favorite story. It's heel Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, it's definitely heel. He's a whiny bitch who pokes his nose into everyone else's business, and I'm sick of him.
Liam is sick of Dusty Rhodes' a lack of authority.
Or I'm sick of his incredulous, self-imposed authority.
You don't think he should be interfering in Vince Russo's decision making?
No, he has no authority. There's no he's making matches, he's stopping things, he's interfering, he's showing up when he. Vince was very nice to him that one week. He's like, "Hey man, just take a week off, come back in next week, we'll get it all sorted," and he still had to fucking poke his nose in.
Yeah, so if you remember, Dusty has been suspended. He was suspended in the last show of last month for all of his antics. Vince Russo was finally fed up of him. He suspended him for 1 week. So September 1st, the weekly pay-per-view, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 110, was the show in which he was meant to be suspended. Hudson had Russo. He was like, Dusty's suspended. Well, there's definitely going to be a new champ next week in the title match. And Trail K were meant to have a six-man tag. It was meant to be BG Conan and Dusty against Team Canada. But they were like, oh no, we're going to be a man down, but we've got the new member of Trail K here, a new mystery partner.
Who the fuck could it be?
Backstage, Trail K in a promo said, tonight is the end of the American dream.
Yes.
And the beginning of the American nightmare.
In my soul, my name's Cody fucking Rhodes.
And Conan does a promo about how you're not a wrestler if you learn a bunch of holds. You're not a wrestler if you do a bunch of tape study. It's like, we have been on the road 300 days a year with broken marriages, concussions, and we've been to drug rehab. That's pro wrestling, baby.
I mean, he's not wrong.
That is the actual promo Conan cuts.
Yeah. I mean, I took note. I was like, yeah, right. It's the first 3OK promo that my ears perked up for.
Oh, you were like, drug rehab?
I think, because they were perked up for it too,
So that leads us to the tag match in which BG James and Conan had the mystery partner, the debuting Midnight Rider.
Yes. I had just seen some of the Midnight Rider stuff previously.
So you jumped out of your chair at Territory Wrestling.
I was like, yes! No, I got the bit.
My favorite part of the entrance was Don West on commentary, being like, the Midnight Rider, Dusty Rhodes, pause, panic, is not here tonight because he's been suspended.
So now the Midnight Rider is here. It's unrelated.
Because Mike and Don had some fun on commentary, playing dumb. It's like, that's not Dusty, he's much slimmer than Dusty.
Yeah.
Where Scott D'Amore freaked out, being like, come on, it's Dusty.
It's a good bit to do, the guy that is obviously the guy.
And the heel is the only person who will actually see it, while everyone else, even impartial, objective babyface announcers, are like, it's the Midnight Rider, it's the guy from the 80s.
Mike Knight's like, I'm a big fan.
So BG Pump handles Divine, and the Midnight Rider drops an elbow for the win. And Don is like, I've never seen a move like that before.
Yeah, this was some fun stuff.
It's good shtick, it's good antics.
But then, my least favorite thing is that he just shows up again at the end of the day. They couldn't just have this be the bit. They had to oversaturate it.
I will say, Dusty coming in and being like, oh, geez, I missed the Midnight Rider. He was one of my faves, daddy.
You think, how many people in that crowd understood the bit, knew Midnight Rider?
I'd say, in that Asylum crowd, probably 60%. Because I think that's one of the older skewing crowds in wrestling history. You look around that crowd and there's a lot of people in their 50s.
Yeah.
So I think there's a decent number of people who had either seen Midnight Rider stuff or were at least aware of it.
That's fair enough.
So yeah, Dusty interrupted the on-camera. Russo came out. He was mad that Dusty was there, even though he was meant to be suspended. He asked Dusty, what do you want? Dusty said, I want a more one-on-one. But Russo banned Trail K from ringside, banned Team Canada from ringside, made himself special referee, and then booked Dusty versus Scott D'Amore next week, with the stipulation that if Dusty loses, he'll have to leave TNA.
Good.
Don West immediately repeated that stipulation, to which Dusty replied, I know that, Donny West. I heard what he said.
God, these two are great together.
They should be on call. Get Mike Tenay out of here. Never mind the man who should be nominated to the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. Get Don West and Dusty on the desk.
That's perfect. Imagine the chaotic, like, childlike energy those two would bring.
It would be insane. So, Impact on September 3rd. Scott D'Amore had a squash match over Jason Rance, and he won with a moonsault and a demoralizer. And then he sang the anthem at Dusty.
So what do you want to talk about? Jason Rance, huh?
I said the name very quickly so you wouldn't hear it. He did come out to the old AMW theme.
Yeah, you want to talk about him? Anything to say?
When Scott D'Amore was being introduced, he made JB do the big introductions, which is not at all also associated with a problematic person. the over-the-top, exaggerated introduction. JB and Don West were aghast when Scott said he weighed 203 pounds. When JB read it, he did like the look-up deadpan very well. And then Don West on commentary, maybe when he was born.
So mean to Scott D'Amore.
He was wearing the Bobby Roode, it's a Terry Taylor robe, but Bobby Roode would go on to wear that red and black robe, so.
And you know what? The very mean to Scott D'Amore, I test, man is still a hunk.
Yeah, hits a sweet moonsault, hits the demoralizer, which is just a cradle shock, for the win.
Yeah.
Super worker Scott D'Amore deserves more respect from these people.
By these people, we mean Mike Tenay and Don West.
And JB.
True.
Franchise had Dusty later in the show, and he did his little hard sell promo for the pay-per-view. And then next show, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 111, the final Asylum show, September 8th. We did have the big match between Dusty Rhodes and Scott D'Amore. They both had backstage interviews earlier in the show. Scott said that he hates just the very concept of the American dream because it represents the selfishness of Americans.
True. They all think that they deserve to be special, that they deserve to have their dreams achieved.
And D'Amore buried Dusty because he's like, he preaches about tradition and honor, and then he jumped to the Fed for a payday and wore polka dots, so he's full of shit.
Ooh.
Shooting on Dusty Rhodes. Then Dusty did a promo right before his match where he talked about how he's rooting for Jeff Hardy to win because he was the guy who brought Jeff Hardy to TNA, and wouldn't it be politically beneficial to him if the guy he did the deal for and brought into the company would then win the NWA title? So it's like, it's not even subtext that like Dusty's out for himself, he's being a little selfish. It's text. He says it out loud. Well,
once again, I was ahead of everyone else in the crowd. I knew that this guy was full of bullshit, and now he's gone out and just straight up said it.
Your Vinny Roo defending ways are running rampant.
I was proven right.
So then you did have Dusty against Scott D'Amore. A nice little match. It's exactly what you think it is. Russo's a special referee. Russo kicked Trail K out. Dusty accidentally elbowed Russo, even though if you look at the way he did it, he looked right at Vince Russo as he elbowed him. So like, I'd almost prefer to read that as he did do it on purpose.
I think you can go either way with it.
Yeah, so then Russo picked up his baseball bat, which was in the corner, and he teased hitting Dusty with it, but then he didn't. Dusty dropped an elbow, picked up the win. Dusty offered Russo a handshake, but before Russo could accept Team Canada attacks, then Vince Russo goes beast mode, pulls his shirt off, and does like chest bumps into Scott D'Amore before Trail K make the save.
I think it was some good work to have this match be on this final NWA-TNA pay-per-view, because it was a match that like you would expect to see on like a monthly pay-per-view schedule.
Yeah, and like as a match on the final Asylum show, you have Dusty, who has been, barring recent events, one of the highlights of the Asylum era against Scott D'Amore.
Vince Russo, barring recent events, has also been one of the highlights.
And you have Scott D'Amore, who has been one of the recent highlights of the company. Like, one of my bigger disappointments is like they didn't do anything to make the final Asylum show feel like, other than the fact like obviously they promoted the main event real hard as like the biggest match in TNA history, but they didn't do anything to make like it feel like a special night. You know, the final Asylum night. There was no like Asylum nostalgia.
No recaps.
No recaps, no video packages, no special guests, not even any talk about this being the final Asylum show. Maybe because they didn't think it would be. Maybe they did think, we'll come back for some pay-per-views, so we shouldn't like lean too hard into it being the end of the era. But it was the end of the era, and it kind of went unacknowledged.
I think perhaps they thought if they played into it too much, the crowd might resent it.
Yeah, because it was their biggest crowd in ages. 1,300 sellout. Don West mentions on TV the next week that they had 1,000 fans turned away. It looked packed on TV. It was the most packed it looked in a very long time.
Yeah, I could see a worry that maybe they thought the crowd would try and hijack the main event.
To be mad that they're taking the show back to Orlando, and it's like, you're abandoning us in our Nashville days. What would Chad think?
What would Chad think?
I hope Chad was there.
I hope he booked the show.
It would feel bad. What if Chad is Vince Russo?
I'd be stunned.
But yeah, that's the most of the Dusty Russo stuff. There's some more stuff we'll talk about in a minute that mostly ties into the number one contender story, the Jeff Hardy story.